All right, folks, you can see from the clips, it's really no better at all. I figured 117.5 would be good. It's a pretty, decent jump for something like this. It's got a K&N filter and a 4-in-1. I mean, that should be fine. And like I said, we have no appreciable change at all. It didn't get a smidge better. I think what we're going to have to do is put a set of Dyna coils on. So I think that's what we're going to have to do at this point. It's doing exactly the same thing at the exact same RPM ranges. At lower RPMs, it's definitely better. It's definitely smoother in an idle. It definitely revs up quicker. So I think the jetting made a positive impact as far as that goes. But we should be right dead nuts in the proper fuel-air mixture range for wide open throttle, running third, fourth gear with just these subtle changes. Hey guys, welcome back. This is the continuation of the 1984 GPz750 video, or I put at the end to be continued. Well, that is this. So where are we at right now? Now, as you saw from the other video, it still broke up and misfired a little bit under mid and heavy throttle, I should say mid RPM and high RPM at wide open throttle. And so I pulled the carbs, and you saw that I did the 117.5s in the mains and the 40s in the pilots. I still did the exact same thing. So again, I pulled these carbs again, and a viewer had suggested that I just throw 120s in it. Now I ultimately did that, but I'll get back to that here in a second. When I took this apart, took the carbs out rather, and laid them down the other side there, I drained them, flipped them over, did the jetting, put them all back together, and just as a kind of a good practice thing, I reach in and just make sure that the slides are going up and down and they're not binding. Well, the one for number one seemed to be binding a little bit, so I said, I wonder why that is. So I took the screws off here, and as soon as I pulled the spring out, I looked down inside the slide, and there's like a button. It really looks like a large button that you'd see on clothing that slides down and holds the jet needle rather. It sits on top of that E-clip, and that holds it down in place, and there's a little bit of play in there so that the needle can move around a little bit so it doesn't get jammed in any one side of the actual needle jet itself. So I don't know what happened, but this thing's up about halfway and it's stuck into that bore. Now those are tight fits anyway inside the actual diaphragms, the slides I should say, not the diaphragm, but they're a snug fit inside these slides. And I found 3 of the 4 like that. And I can't really figure out why. The only explanation I can come up with is that I did it. I must have made a mistake because I did change that needle position after, and this was way back, after I did the initial jetting, actually before I did the initial jetting, and I raised the needle by lowering the E-clip in each carb while they were on the bike, just like you see them right now, because you can get at these pretty easy. I don't know how I did it, but apparently when I dropped those back down in, it must have bumped against the needle going down through and then pushed that up, and I didn't see it. Now, I don't see how I could have not seen that, to be honest with you, because I'm pretty sure I always reach down inside there and push it and make sure that they're seated, but I can't honestly remember doing it, so I'm going to have to chalk it up to error, and I fixed it, of course, but, number 3 over there, you couldn't even get the slide up all the way because the spring had bunched up because of that thing being up so high in there. I'm like, what the hell? So I fixed it, and I did, like I said, jetted it to 120. There's a little caveat in that too. Okay, so that caveat is as follows. I did not have 4 120s in stock. I had 2, that's 2, and I had 2 of the 122.5s. Now, there's very little size, as far as the physical orifice goes on these Makini jets, the way they are set up. And I mean, I could have gotten away with that, but I would have put the 122.5s in the 2 centers, because sometimes performance builds are like that anyway. You put just slightly richer in the center, but usually it's a much larger step. For example, it'd be 120s and then 130s or something like that, but I could have gotten away with it. But instead, what I did was I took the 120s and I used my number drill set, and I found, I forgot what number drill it was, like a 36 or a 38 or something. the higher the number drill, the smaller it is. And it fit perfectly in the 120, and so I used a jet reamer on some 115s, and I simply duplicated the orifice size on 115s, and I just put them all four in the carburetors just the way they are, you know, because now I have technically 4 120 sized main jets. Now for the next guy that goes in there, assuming it's not me and somebody goes to diagnose a problem and they see 2 115s and 2 120s scattered about, they're going to go, what the hell's going on? But I'm pretty confident I'm the only one that's going to be working on this thing, so it's not a big deal. And I'll make sure the customer's aware of it and put it on the ticket because, you know, that's the way I do it. But yesterday, I put everything back here as you see it, and I hooked it up to auxiliary fuel source, fired it up, and it ran really well. I mean, it does seem to, you know, poof, come up really quick. I'm not going to show you that because it's irrelevant at this point. Remember, we were running good sitting on the lift here before. We're running very well, actually. And it was only under load and under, you know, hammering on the road conditions that we were getting the issue. So the next step, and I'm pretty sure we got this straightened out, is we're going to go ahead and replace these coils. Now, do we really need to? I'm not 100% sure, but they're 38 years old. I talked to the customer about it. It's not terribly expensive. I'm not going to really charge them hardly anything to do this because I really want to, you know, make this right, because if I make a mistake on this, then I'm just, you know, I'm going to hang up my wrenches and, you know, go sit in a rocker somewhere. But, you know, it is what it is, right? So I figure what we'll do in this video, because I got a delivery out for delivery notice on the Dynatech coils and the wires for this. Let's do a diagnostics on these coils. We can do 2 diagnostics on the primary side of the coil and the secondary. And we can use a digital multimeter for it. Kawasaki service manual, you know, from back in the days, pretty much printed when the Model T was a big thing, says to use a Kawasaki spark tester. And the spark tester essentially makes the spark jump a particular gap of 7 millimeters. And if it jumps that gap, then everything's hunky-dory. I don't have that, obviously. And we're going to go ahead and use a multimeter, and we're going to test this based on the information in the service manual. Let's see if these coils are actually marginal or bad or good or what. We're going to change them anyway because, like I said, 38 years old, might as well do it. But let's go ahead and take a look at that. Now, before we do that, I just want to cover one thing real quick, and I got one of the spark plug caps up here. I want to discuss that here in just a sec. But just want to, you know, point out that on these old inline 4s, it's a wasted spark system. You have 2 coils for 4 cylinders, all right? And 1 and 4 and 2 and 3 are companion cylinders. So you're going to have, this one is for 2 and 3, and the coil over here is for 1 and 4. So when we test the secondary side of the coil, we're going to be testing to the ends of these high tension leads for 2 and 3 and then 1 and 4. And the primary side, we're going to be testing, this is your power, and then the trigger side. And I'm not sure the strategy on how this works, but I'm pretty sure what it ends up doing is just triggering it to either go to a ground so the field collapses and then the secondary fires. I'm not 100% sure, but this is how we definitely test it. So the primary is going to get tested between these 2 guys. The secondary gets tested between the 2 leads. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because right now I have on here non-resistor plug caps. I happen to have 4 in stock. I kind of keep them for a situation like this. This is a resistor cap. These old bikes all came with a 5 ohm resistor cap. And the reason why was because back then they didn't use resistor plugs in them. So right now this thing has I forgot the numbers, but they're the iridiums. They're essentially a BR8ES, but in the iridium, so it's like BR8ES XYZ, whatever the hell it is. As opposed to, like, for example, here you have a B7ES. I think these came out of the VFR, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. Now, the difference, of course, is that these are non-resistor plugs, and these are. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to run a resistor plug with a resistor cap, because it's not necessary, and you can decrease your spark energy, ultimately, because of the double resistor. Now, the problem nowadays is, and this one will actually take not a 7, but a B8 or a B9 ES is what it calls for. But it also lists a resistor plug you can put in there as well, which is a little curious because I'm not really sure why they would do that in the service manual. So the reason why we will take, in this case, take the resistor caps off and put regular ones on is because you just can't get these anymore. Like the B8ESs, they're like, unobtainium. They're all resistor plugs now you can get from NGK. If you can find some of these, buy as many as you can get your hands on, like the 7s or the 8s, or the 9s for that matter. Non-resistor, right? So I'm just mentioning that. I just put these on as a test yesterday when I fired it up, and obviously it worked, but the fact that we have no resistor on here is we're going to make sure that when we read the service data, they're not considering the resistor as part of that total impedance. If they are, then we'll have to add that, to our calculation, just add 5 ohms to it, or simply put the resistor cap back on one at a time, or two at a time, when we test it. So I just wanted to bring that up. All right, I got the fluke out. You don't need a fluke. You can use a regular garden variety bargain basement digital multimeter to do a test like this, but I have it, so I'm just going to use it. I unplugged the primary side of the coil, which is, again, those two. Oops, you're a little high there, aren't you? Or low in this case. There we go. And we're going to see what our measurement is on the primary side of the coil. The polarity should not matter. 2.4, 3 something, 3.1, 3.2, 3.3. All right, so now the service manual says, let me see what it says. I know that's within range though, but let me make sure what it says. All right, the service manual says the primary resistance is 1.8 to 2.8 ohms. That's the range. This is important because if you're going to change over to like Dynatech coils, you need to know this primary resistance as far as what it's supposed to be. So we're roughly 2.4. That's dead nuts right in the middle. So as far as the primary side of this one goes, it's good. So let's go to the other side and check the primary on that one. Okay, so same deal, same settings. Primary side on 1 and 4. Yeah, and it's showing 2.55, 2.54. So that one's within range as well. So the primary side's good. Now we're going to check secondary side. We'll just do 1 and 4 since we're sitting over here. Alright, so I got 1 and 4. Now I'm going to keep these caps on because, as I said before, they're non-resistor type. And I'll have to read the instructions or the diagnostic procedure. I'm not sure if they say to take them off or not, but I bet you they do. So I'm going to hook it up to 1 and 4 and we'll see what it is. It's supposed to be 10 to 16 kiloohms. Yeah, so it's reading, what, 11,803 kiloohms? So it's, what does I say, 10 to 16 kiloohms? I mean, it's on the lower side, but it's definitely within spec. So now we'll try, what was this, is 1 and 4. We'll do 2 and 3 and see what that one is. 11.966 kiloohms, so this one's within spec too. So technically, according to the service manual, nothing wrong with these coils at all. But, like I said, they're 38 years old. Nothing is saying that they are not giving us problems when they get warm. I still suggest changing them out because, again, these spark plug wires are really, really stiff from all the heat. And it's just a matter of time before, there's an issue with those. It's just a matter of time. Yeah, the service data does say to unscrew the caps, so this is the same thing basically because these are non-resistor caps. We can try it on 1 and 4 here because it's a little easier to get at because I got to take these off anyway if I'm going with new coils. So let's just try it for shits and giggles. I don't think it's going to make a hill of beans worth of difference. See, inside these coils inside these caps there's a little screw. And then you have the wire right there. So when I make the new wires up, we'll bring those out, and actually we don't use caps like this on the new wires. What am I saying? But if we were going to be putting new wires like this on, we bring those wires out and kind of flare them a little bit, maybe just a little bit longer than the hole, and then screw these in, and it kind of presses them all together against the screw, and it makes a good contact. Another trick you can do is if you have enough length, and don't we all wish we did, is to just cut it back a little bit and then start with a little fresh section if you have a problem with spark plug wires. These are pretty short already. I suspect they've already been done that way. So like I said, we're just going to be replacing them. So anyway, 1 and 4. Let's take the caps off and go direct, but we're going to get the same reading basically. Yeah, so these coils are not showing as bad as far as the numbers go when they're cold. So Not a big deal. We're going to change them out anyway. Yeah, 11.809. So these things are right in the spec, 10 to 16. Anyway, that's how you can test them cold at least. Now, I guess we could take the heat gun out and warm them up and see how much they change, but what's the point? We're going to change them out anyway. But I was kind of curious to see what the baselines were on it. So, are we doing it for nothing? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Like I said, it still could be some ignition related issues, because as soon as this thing heats up, you know, these coils are right there on top of the engine and the tank is on top of that. So these things are just baking in here. I mean, they're getting hot. Air, oil, cool bike. So like I said, we're going to change them out. All right, folks, changing plans. Talked to the customer. I went over the findings on the coils, and he's declining that at this time. So he says, let's not do it. He's trying to keep his costs down. I understand that. And he says, just take it for a shake and see how it behaves now with some different jetting. And he's going to check it himself like tomorrow or the next day. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get her off the lift here. I don't have the side covers on just in case I need to pull a tank again. Just save a couple steps. Let's think positively, though, and say that they're going back on here shortly. And we'll take her for a shake. Got to put the GoPro on. Unfortunately, it's going to be sideways like the other clips, but it's the best I can do. So let's go ahead and get her down, give her a shake. You see what I see, folks? Side covers. It's done. Wow, I'm really impressed with the way it runs. I'm kind of glad we didn't do those coils, to be honest with you. I'm going to hold on to them for a while, but yeah, lessons learned on this one, folks. Double checked some stuff in the carbs, which I usually do. Like I said before, I do not know what happened with that. And, you know, with those needles being elevated up and one of the slides not opening all the way, I mean, it's a completely different animal now. Holy cow. I hope the video caught it. My God, I mean, I couldn't do too much around this neighborhood here, but I got it up to about 8K, barely, wide open throttle, and she was just pulling like a freight train all the way through that range. Not a miss. Now, I don't like the D-cell popping. We may not be able to get away with that. So what I did was I had the pilot's screws, the fuel screws, set at 2.5 turns because I went with a larger slow jet. So I've increased that to 2 3/4, but I'm not willing to go any bigger than that because I tried it at 3 when I first did the slow jets, and it started to bog down at idle like it was getting too much fuel. So we're going to leave that at 2 3/4. If he doesn't like that, I can always adjust it. Even at his location, it's not a big deal. So, yeah, I'm real happy with this. We're going to ship it. I'm going to call him back here in a little bit and tell him come on over and take it for a ride and ship it. So, I'm not going to charge him a dime for this work. I'm going to consider this 100% warranty. I'm going to go ahead and eat these caps, even though that's something I'm throwing in. That's the non-resistor caps, which it really should have because it's got resistor plugs. But I'm going to keep the resistor caps, so I'm kind of trading them because every now and then I need one of those for a bike that comes in and you got a bad resistor cap, which does happen. Every now and then you get one that comes in and the thing is either open or it's got, mega ohms or resistance in it instead of 5 ohms. So I'm going to kind of trade them off on that. And as far as labor goes, I'm not going to charge them a dime either. This is 100%. I'm going to consider it a comeback warranty job and ship it. And I'm much more interested in making sure that my customers are 110% satisfied with the work that I do than any amount of money that I could possibly bring in on a job. I want to make sure that they are 100% happy. I know he is going to take this for a test ride and come back and the helmet's going to be full of smiles because this thing really pulls. I mean, it pulls good now. So to that viewer that suggested the 120s, I forgot who you were. Thanks for that tip or suggestion. I did do that, as I said. And wow, man, she runs hard. Idle's good, runs good. Maybe that extra quarter turn on the slows might reduce some of that popping. Like I said, I doubt it. I think that has to do with the, I forgot what RPM it was, but it was kind of mid-range on the D-cell. I'll look at the video. I should be able to tell because I think the camera can see the tack. I hope it could at least. Anyway, the mid-range is probably something to do with that mission control system. Well, for lack of a better term, that is like an air purge valve type deal. I forgot what it's called, like a second air valve. I don't remember. It's the one that has a big hose coming back from a vacuum switch, which I did test to make sure. This is the hose for it here, the vacuum line. I did test this to make sure that it wasn't like a blown diaphragm or anything, and it was good. It may have something to do with that. Most of the guys delete that, do a factory delete of all that crap, and just put a vacuum cap here and be done with it. And so that's that. Yeah, so I'm real happy with it. It definitely screams now. Could be that. Who knows? We'll see. But I think that'll be it. I think we're going to close it out now because there's not much more to do. There isn't really anything else to do at all except we'll give it a wipe down with some spray wax, the kind you use like at car shows, and a nice clean brand new microfiber, and then have him take it for a shake, and when he gets here tomorrow, day after, whatever, and hopefully he'll be happy with it. And I hope you're happy with this video because folks, I'm not afraid to tell you when I make a mistake, if I screw something up, because remember guys, I screw shit up so you don't have to. So basically that's the way I roll. I'm going to tell you if I make a mistake, and I'm going to tell customers if I did the same thing, and I'm going to make up for it. I'll fix it. So let's fix this one into the can, so to speak, and get it up on the channel. This will be the last, hopefully, you'll be seeing in the GPz750. And of course, always remember, folks, don't just repair, restore. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next video. Well, you know me, I couldn't let any video end without at least giving you a shot of the VFR. I got some stickers on now, the HRC and the V4 gear-driven cam sticker. This will be, I have a couple sets of these. This is just for now. I'm going to go ahead and waste them someday when I repaint this, but that's going to be a while from now. Then I'll put new ones on at that time. They're pretty cheap, so I got a few sets of them. And I got a few sets of these too. I doubt we're going to do any side cover painting on this. It's just, on the other side is a little bit of an uh-oh, but it isn't bad enough on either side to really warrant that. I mean, hell, I'm going to ride this thing. I'm not going to worry about that. But yeah, there you go. I like stickers.